Hello everyone, I'm Katie.
I'm Dan.
And we're here as your ADHD guides on your ADHD journey. So we want to welcome you to our very first episode in ADHD Lounge. And we're kind of nervous, so please cut us a bit of a break today. Just like you, we have been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm combined type, and Dan, you are?
Inattentive combined, yep.
So
maybe all of them.
all the types. I experience my ADHD in mostly like hyperactivity and rumination, more, not so much internal, mine's more external, and I know that Dan, you experience yours more internally.
Yeah, probably more internally, and more the like inattentive, forgetful sort of side of things affects me,
Yeah. Okay, so we're basically going to be here podcasting for the next while to help you understand how to navigate your journey and how the diagnosis process goes in New Zealand, because it's not really talked about that much, and there's a lot of stigma attached to having ADHD. So today what we're going to discuss is basically our stories and our journeys in finding out about our spicy brains. So Dan, do you want to take it away and tell everybody about how you
Sure.
kind of figured out about your spicy brain?
Yeah, so I was 36 when I found out. I never had any kind of idea about it before. I'd known other people that had had it, especially as kids and stuff, and I was never the hyperactive kid, so it never came through as anything, and always sort of smart enough to get through school fine without any red flags and without doing any homework or study, and I just could never do that. And then years later at 36, I saw an audio book on my newsfeed called Scattered Minds, and started listening to it, and about half an hour later realised I hadn't listened to any of it. I stopped it again and started from the beginning, and it just straight away explained my life.
Wow.
I think the sentence that got me was, when you leave the house, how many times do you leave the house? You go in for your keys, your phone, your wallet, your loose debit card, your other key that's not attached to your keyring for no reason, and it was just all the little struggles, and I was just like, fuck, this is every day.
Obviously reading the book and finding out all of the stuff resonating with you. Through your teenage years or anything like that, did you kind of struggle with up and down, depression, anxiety, anything like that? Did you just put it down to being stressed?
I think I just got too good at masking it and never really understood it because it wasn't normal. Other people didn't get it, so I didn't resonate. It wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. I just masked to fit in and do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how good you get at it.
Yeah.
That you can't even recognise the things in yourself. So you build yourself a whole lot of walls of coping mechanisms and this and that. And then you find out about your brain and you're just like, holy fuck, what is real?
Yeah.
You spend your whole fucking life trying to fit into a different, into a scenario that's not your own natural self.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So when you found out, when you obviously read this book, and
I didn't read the whole thing.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the classic ADHD.
Yeah, that was a sign also.
Did you have to go and see your doctor and convince them that this is something you were struggling with? Did they take it well?
Yeah, she did. It was crazy. I went in and started talking to her about it, and she started writing down on the pad straight away, writing the referral. She's just like, fuck, here we go.
Oh wow.
And said to me, it's crazy that you came in here today because I haven't had anyone for 20 years come in about ADHD, and a girl came in and saw me yesterday.
Oh.
And then you've come in today. So, and that was really interesting. That was that was quite out of it to hear. So she wrote a referral, no problem, and then I just rang around and found a psychiatrist. I got really lucky, found an appointment in 4 weeks.
Wow,
6 weeks.
That's pretty good, because I know that for our listeners, Dan and I have both been diagnosed, for me it's coming up 3 years. How long for you?
It'll be 3 in July.
Yeah, so we managed, obviously, for us, we kind of caught it before it kind of hit social media and that like mainstream kind of like thing where like people started to talk about it more. So I know the psychiatry waits now, especially in New Zealand, are like
more a year.
Yeah,
it's insane. And I hear that from followers that all around the world it's like that, people having trouble getting appointments and stuff.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, when we talk about our kind of process, know that like we didn't have to like endure the massive weight that some of you guys are waiting with right now, and we can really empathize, because I don't know about you, Dan, but like when I did some testing with an occupational therapist, and when she like wrote a referral for my doctor, I was like, for one, what is ADHD? And two, like I kind of went into this like paralytic mode where I felt like I was just so overwhelmed and stressed, and I didn't know what to expect, and I felt like that all the way up until my appointment. So like, you know,
because you're like, what if you don't? And then it's like, how do you prepare for it? It's like, fuck, don't. Don't prepare for it. Like, be late. Like, email them on the day, ring them. Shit, I need the link.
Yeah, like
that's
I didn't
what
fill
I
out
did.
the forms.
I had to ring them and be like, oh, have you sent the link? They're like, yes, we sent it. It's in my email.
I would recommend, like, because the wait is so long, definitely filling out the forms before you go, so that like you can make your process nice and smooth. But I mean, so we can really empathize with you, and we really hope that like some of the things that we discuss in our upcoming episodes are going to help you cope and help you figure out a little more about what you're dealing with. So by the time you get to a psychiatrist, you feel like you can communicate effectively what's going on for you.
And I feel like a lot of people with ADHD are going to do a lot of research, and there's so much info out there now as well that you can become your own kind of expert on it reasonably quickly with classic ADHD stuff.
And I mean, like, once you got diagnosed, do you feel like it was like somebody turned the light on for you and you were just kind of like...
It was super relieving to realise it's just like, oh, okay, there's a reason for fucking all these little things that have been so difficult and stuff in life all fall into place as why, you know, like there's a reason that I'm bad at doing paperwork and stuff, or at paying bills on time and stupid little things like that because of executive dysfunction. So it was really relieving to find that out. And then the first day taking the meds, I was just like, this is epic, amazing.
Wow. So do you feel like from the first day that you took meds, you felt like it was like amazing? Oh, okay. That's really cool to hear, because like I know for a lot of people, it was like life changing.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's sort of, and it's almost like you don't so much notice you're on the meds, then you notice when you're off them. So you take them and it's like, I've done all the stuff I need to do.
Right.
And I'm like, that's weird, you know, like what's up with that? And then it's as it wears off, and then you realise, and your brain's all scattered again, you're just like, okay, that's like, wow, what a difference.
And I don't know about our listeners, but I know for us, like we, Dan and I actually met through an ADHD page and have become really good friends and like bonded over what it's like to live with ADHD, because a lot of the time when you try and explain to somebody who's not neurodiverse, normie, when you're a quirky, what it's like to live with ADHD, it can feel like...
It feels stupid. You feel like...
Yeah, you feel like it's very invalidating. Yeah, and then they're like, you know, I've had like some negative reactions myself, and like people just being like, oh, well, like, it can't be that hard.
Or why can't you just do it? Or you know, like get a planner, write it down.
Get a
write
planner.
A fucking list.
Don't be late. You should plan ahead. It's really difficult. And I know that for myself, all of the things that I have trouble with, like everybody, whether you're neurodiverse or not, has trouble with them. But
that happens to everyone.
Yeah, and it does. You know, everybody is late. Often people do forget stuff when they leave the house. And it's like, I always use the analogy, and you guys might want to use this as well. Like, I always say, we all need to wee. But if you're weeing, you know, like everybody wees. But then if you're weeing like 100 times a day, that's when it starts to ruin your life. And I feel like...
The people are like, that happens to everyone. They like misplace their keys or something. But like every day, is it every time you leave the house?
Yeah.
Is it like actually making a difference to your life.
Yeah. And so, I mean, when it starts to impact on you so much so that it's impacting your day-to-day functioning and your mood, like, you know, whether you're feeling like happy, sad, anxious, whatever, then it's obviously an issue. So, yeah, that's kind of how I explain it to people. And then it helps them often be like, oh, okay, because executive functioning, like, you know, like we all have executive functioning centers in our brain, and for some people, like, stress impacts executive functioning. So for us who are already on the back foot, like, stress can make our ADHD symptoms worse.
Yeah.
But for a non-neurodiverse person, when they get stressed, they just get impacted slightly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they do the thing and carry on. And then we're likely to, well, we'll work one of two ways under stress, either really well and like a crisis kind of thing, like quick thinking or something where people will freak out and stuff. We'll just be like, oh, okay, like this is fine.
Calm and collected.
And be able to finish things on a deadline like the night before, you know, like right up to the last minute, all good. But when it's the stress of like little things that are coming up, I think it's hard to do anything else, and then you get stuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Dan, I just want you to share with our listeners, like, what do you feel like for you were the most predominant symptoms? Because people always say when you meet one person with ADHD, you've only met one person with ADHD. So for everybody listening, I'm just trying to build you a bigger picture of Dan, and so that, you know, if any of you are struggling with these things and didn't know that they're related to ADHD, hopefully he can shed some light and hopefully educate you around some of the symptoms he was experiencing.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things, I think, like forgetfulness and impulsiveness was really a problem, I guess, sort of earlier in life, and, you know, when I didn't have any idea as well.
Right.
And it's sort of, you end up making these decisions and doing things and quitting jobs because you didn't like it or something, you know.
Right,
and
okay.
then sort of putting yourself into a different situation. I don't know why that's so hard one to answer right now, though, like symptoms of it. I think it's just the, like, executive function, the missing the ability to just do the things.
Okay.
And it's every day, it's all the time as well. Right,
yes. And I know, like, for myself, like, part of the reason, like, obviously I got diagnosed when I was 30, and so I'm 33 now. And I didn't get picked up because I'm just a bit of a chatterbox, and I'm a girl. So that's under where they have the gender normative stuff of what makes a girl a woman. Being a chatterbox is completely fine, apparently.
You all love to talk.
Yeah, but it was like, that is part of hyperactivity. So for me, like, everybody used to always say to me, oh, you're super outgoing, you're so chatty, you're so friendly. But for me, it was like a bit of an anxious thing, because a lot of the time I would be chatting away about, you know, completely normal stuff. But then I would start oversharing things that were really personal, and I felt like I had no filter from my brain to my mouth, and I would start to share stuff that was, like, not unsettling for other people, but would make them feel awkward. You know, they'd be like, oh, I'm experiencing, like, a really bad time at the moment. And I'd be like, I've been depressed before too, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it was just, like, an inappropriate time to be oversharing, like, a lot of my emotions, and it would just be, like, a lot. And I could never gauge what was appropriate and like where the line was. And so, like, you know,
hard to read the room.
And I found that, like, social cues, like, for me are really difficult. I mostly go off people's, like, facial expressions, and a lot of the time I feel like the person's facial expression will be mad or they'll be annoyed, but, like, that is not the emotion that they're trying to convey. So, like,
but I think you have, like, a teeny bit of RSD from that negative feedback, you know, like, even how subtle it was, and then it's sort of like,
and it gets bigger and bigger, and so for me, like, social stuff was really difficult. and directions, like I would get lost all the time, and even if I'd been to the place before, I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't remember the directions, or I couldn't remember what the house looked like that I was going to. Emotional regulation, so for me, I was either like super up and I was like living my best life, or I was absolutely in the bottom of the toilet, like depressed, like just suicidal.
Did you find like just overreacting to things as well, and just or you have emotions but you don't know, or something's happened, you don't know how to express it, and then something else happens
and just tips you over the edge.
Shit, you know?
Yeah, and
like watching a documentary or something, burst out crying for it because of something that happened 7 years ago.
Yeah. So what I wanted to highlight here for our listeners is that emotional regulation isn't actually part of the DSM. It's not a symptom where they've written it down saying that, you know, oh, like, do you experience like either intense emotional swings, or like your brain not being able to understand the difference between a big deal and a little deal, which is often what happens to both of us, right? And I just thought I was kind of unhinged, or I had bipolar. And so like when I kept going to the doctor feeling anxious all the time, they were kind of just like, oh, you're just anxious. And then, you know, I wasn't obviously diagnosed until I was 30. And so I just thought I was an anxious person. Yeah. And it wasn't until I actually found out about ADHD that I realized that, like, your brain, the executive functioning part of your brain not only controls things like working memory, which is, you know, part of what you have trouble with, but emotional regulation. So what they're doing now is they're looking at including like emotional issues in like chronic anxiety and depression into the DSM, because it's something that like generally a lot of us really struggle with. What is the DSM? The DSM is, for our listeners, they probably don't know.
I don't.
So I'm educating Dan too, guys. The DSM is the manual which they use to determine what it is that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, obviously they have this like big book and they like flip it open and they like have all these questions, and they're part of the questions that they ask when we go for
that assessment.
Yeah, and they're like, on a scale of 10, like,
okay.
What is the likelihood that you experience? And they have like all these random scenarios. Like, if you were in a meeting, like, what is the likelihood that you're going to stand up from
and
1
question
to 10?
The same, and you'll feel like you're answering the same question several times in a slightly different way. And it's sort of, that annoys me about all of those.
It was really confusing. Like you know, when I got diagnosed, I went and actually found myself in an occupational therapist first before I was in a psychiatrist.
So did you directly go to get an ADHD diagnosis, or you were just like, I'm kind of unhinged, like, what's going on?
Okay, so, like, I guess for me, like, I had a really uncommon kind of experience with my ADHD. So there's just, like, trigger warning if you have ever experienced, like, psychosis or anything like that, and you find it really difficult to listen to anything in regards to that, I would say just step away now, or just kind of fast forward the podcast a little bit, because I'm just going to talk about a little bit of psychosis, and then we will move onwards. But so for me, I have always struggled with anxiety to a point where it's almost been debilitating, like obviously mood stuff, like I said before. But when we were in lockdown, I feel like a lot of us like had breakdowns in lockdown. But I was so stressed because I couldn't work. My job is, what I do during the day is like generally really physical, and it's people orientated. And so my routine was completely out the window. And I went from seeing like 20 people a week to like the 2 other people I was in my house with. And at that point I wasn't doing any Zoom stuff, but
so you were diagnosed just after COVID, right?
Just after COVID.
So same pretty much.
And I feel like it got magnified from the stress layered on top of the stuff that was already difficult. But I guess
true.
my anxiety got to an absolute tipping point where it just, like, I could not manage it through my coping mechanisms anymore. Like, I, like, have been doing counseling for a number of years. I've been, like, you know, like, I'm very physically active. I do a lot of walking. I do meditation. Like, all of the self-care stuff you're supposed to do, like, I'm already doing.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, I couldn't get on top of my anxiety. And it got so bad that I stopped sleeping because I was just so wound up and so anxious. My body wouldn't let me physically fall asleep because I was ruminating so much. And so this went on for a number of days, and I'd be getting like little cat naps here and there. And then I think it got to the point where I was so sleep deprived that it pushed me into like psychosis.
Yeah, wow.
So I was really obsessive, which is part of what our brains do. We go into hyperfocus. If you haven't heard of hyperfocus, it's basically when you get sucked into what you're doing.
And then another one and another one.
Yeah, and you just give it your 100% and there's nothing else. You're just like, you know, you're only fishing.
Yeah.
Or for me, only plants. Or
it'll be what you're doing right now if you think you have ADHD.
Yeah.
What you're doing with ADHD, which will be finding out everything about it.
Yeah, it's probably what you're doing right now. And so I got hyper fixated on basically cleaning out every single cupboard in my house.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to create some kind of order for myself. Now that I can reflect back, I was trying to create calm, which is really not what I was feeling. And so here I am at 2 a.m. cleaning out a cupboard in my house, again for the 4th time. And I thought, no, okay, I should probably lie down and try and go to sleep. And my husband sleeps with a fan. And I was lying there and I thought, like, the fan, there was like some kind of power surge going on. But what I truly thought was that it was my future self sending my current self a message in Morse code. And so, like, because the fan was making noise like, nee, because it was like, obviously the power was surging. And at the time, Ira was like, oh my gosh, like, I have to decode this message. This is like, I truly honestly thought that it was a message from my future self. And I had to crack the code, and I was sitting on the floor with a pen and paper, and Kurt was kind of like, what are you doing? Because I'd switched the light on at like about 2:30 in the morning, and I was like, I would have looked like that guy in the meme where he's in the whiteboard with all of the photos connected by that red line. Like, I was like...
on Always Sunny.
Yeah, like, I was like, babe, it's a message from my future self to my present self. And he was kind of like, okay, cool. And I was like, I need to decode it. And I was like, do you know Morse code? And he was like, no, because like, who knows Morse code nowadays? He convinced me to maybe just like shut my eyes and try and get a bit of sleep. And maybe we'd decode the message in the morning. But when I think I got a couple of hours sleep, and when I woke up in the morning, I was definitely aware that like what I was experiencing wasn't real, but also there was a big piece of me that believed it was real. And I went, oh no, I think I'm in a bit of trouble. Yeah. And it was really scary, and I was really upset. And so I spoke to my mum, who's a nurse, and she was kind of like, hey, like she knew an occupational therapist who was seeing, once we came out of lockdown, she was like, I think we should book in with her so that you can get some initial kind of mental health testing done, and like, let's get to the bottom of this, because obviously at this point it was getting magnified to the point where like I couldn't live my life.
So that you would have had to go through like quite a bit of testing to
figure out.
Sort of going in with something is up. Yeah.
And so I went into my doctor first. She wrote me a referral for the occupational therapist who they worked really closely with.
Yeah.
And then I went in and I spoke to the occupational therapist for a couple of hours, and she ran through a lot of like testing, like a few little things here and there with me. And then she was like asking me a lot about self-esteem, and I was like, why is this relevant? And I was like, yeah, I have terrible self-esteem. I do feel really bad when I'm rejected.
Yeah.
And then she was just like, you know, or perceived rejection. And then she was like asking me about like, really random things like, do I feel like I'm not succeeding as much as my peers that I am? And I was kind of like, yeah, I always feel like I'm the one who's like got issues, or
it's like a little bit behind.
Yeah, like I just can't,
somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like I just couldn't get on top of my mental health no matter what I did. It was like I always felt like I was on the back foot and everyone else seemed to have it together and I didn't. I honestly felt like I was spending my life walking through mud.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. You're just trying to just do the basic things of life. It's like you're walking in mud, like waist deep, you know? Everything's hard.
Everything just felt near impossible. And anyway, at the end of it, she said to me, Katie, and I was like, you can tell me that I'm unhinged. Like, I need to go for a psych visit? And, you know, we're joking about this now, but at the time I was genuinely terrified. So if you're in a place of feeling really scared for your journey, like, you know, like we've both been in a position where we've been really scared, and I can speak for myself and say, like, you know, I was in tears. Like, I honestly, genuinely thought that it, you know, I was crazy, you know, like, and I was like, nobody else experiences this stuff. I'm insane. Like, how's my life going to look now? And she said to me, like, had I ever heard of ADHD? And I was like, no. And I was mad. Yeah. Because I was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I was like, how do we fix it? And she said,
well,
you can't fix it. She was like, it's kind of more like
complicated.
And she was like, it's to do with the way your brain's wired. And she was like, I think you've been under so much stress that your brain is literally like trying to find you like safety in the chaos, and you're just really not dealing with the change very well.
I guess it's the point that where masking becomes you know, not possible. You know, like we go through our whole lives masking to fit in, to do the normal things, to talk to the normal people, and to be a normal person, and then it gets so concentrated, I guess, to a point that you can't mask it anymore. Yeah, and that's exactly, like, I was under so much stress, I couldn't uphold the mask that I was using in my day-to-day life. Like, the coping mechanisms that I developed, they just weren't effective anymore. And so she wrote a letter back to my doctor, and then my doctor was like, referred me on to a psychiatrist, but she also wrote in there to like evaluate me for like mood disorders and personality disorders. And I was like really upset about that, because like that's even more stigmatized than neurodiversity. But also, like, I was very confused and stressed, so I had no idea really what was going on. And then I spoke to my mom, and I said, I went to see the occupational therapist, and she thinks I have ADHD. And my mum went, oh yeah, I thought so. Thanks.
And I was like, what? And it turns out she'd had me tested twice previously, evaluated for ADHD symptoms.
And that was when you were like younger?
But and
it wasn't even heard of for girls.
No, so
at that time at all, eh?
Yeah.
It doesn't show that way. Yeah. Or doesn't show the hyperactive, so it never gets picked up.
Yeah. And I was always like a distracted learner in school, and I'm incredibly creative, but I was smart enough to scrape by and like do okay. I do have dyscalculia, but they just said, oh, you're just bad at maths, but you're a girl, so you don't really need maths. You'll be fine.
Wow.
So like in the 90s, they basically said women and men's and all humans' brains are completely different. So there's no way that women or girls could experience ADHD and that it wasn't an issue for us. That I was just a very lively child, and that and that my mum should just like give me this space to be creative. So that's kind of what my parents did.
Yeah, which is good.
Which is awesome, yeah. But at the same time, I wish sometimes that I had been helped a little earlier, and it would have saved me a lot of anxiety and stress and like social issues and feeling all around bad.
Yeah, I think in the few years after finding out, you know, you sort of after a few months, you're like, oh, I know quite a bit about this and how it's affected my life. And then after a few years, you're just like, it's still like every day.
Yeah.
Learning things about yourself or looking back on things and thinking of the reason why something happened or why you did make that decision or did that thing at that time. And you think like, man, if I was diagnosed as a kid, how different life would be.
I really feel like generally, you know, like in our society today, like boys are picked up generally faster than girls. Do you think that because your ADHD manifests as mostly inattentiveness, that's why you got missed?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it was because I was never like that hyperactive, but the inattentiveness. So I would never study for an exam. I don't get it. I don't understand how someone can sit there and read a bunch of stuff. I could never really get the concept of it. And would just, like, look, if I was bored in class, just be looking out the window, like counting the little holes in those ceiling panels, you know, like why are they different? That one's got,
Wow, okay.
And I was just so distracted, but intelligent enough to come to an exam and pass it.
Right.
So just, I guess not picked up because school always did fine, even though in my head I was like, this is dumb, like why are we here?
Oh, okay,
I'd do any project, like, on the bus on the way to school in the morning, like as last minute as possible, anything to procrastinate doing it. But I just think it wasn't picked up because that was more the inattentive side of it. You know, if I was hyperactive and was doing poorly in exams and stuff like that, then there'd be something to look at.
Yes, exactly.
But it was never a thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think you internalized a lot of your own struggle by masking, obviously?
Yeah.
Did you ever, like, for our listeners, like, I can only speak for myself and say that, like, most of my schooling and social schooling time, I guess, I felt like an alien. I genuinely felt like one day my little spaceship was going to beam down and pick me up and take me back to my home, because I felt like I just did not fit in, and I did not, like, you know, I'd get teased for being like weird or like too sensitive. So it's like
different way of thinking that's not normal. You know,
just like different. Yeah.
And the thing I used to hate is teachers, especially for maths, would be like, show the working for things, and I could do the maths thing. I know that you and maths not so good.
I'm just calculus, so like honestly, like 9 and 6 look the same to me.
Yeah, but I would be able to do it differently to how it was taught.
Wow,
but
that's so cool.
But then you'd get marked back for it because
you didn't show your working.
Hadn't shown the working, and it's like I can't write down how I've put it together.
Yeah, because like part of executive functioning is obviously like ADHDs are amazing at like patterns and pattern recognition, but apparently like the order in which, like the steps in order to show an outcome for something.
Getting it out of the brain is the problem.
Yeah,
it's all good to do the stuff, but then it's trying to explain that to someone else.
Then like the steps as well, because you probably had a really mismatched way of going about it. You might have done something before something else and gone back and forth.
Or it probably didn't even have half the steps, or it didn't. I'd figured out part of it in my head and then winged it from there, kind of. But it'd be like, well, that's not correct because that's not how you do it. And I'm like, it's the same answer, you know?
Right, yeah.
Which is, I don't know, I've always found it frustrating.
Yes.
But I don't know, I guess I'm not that surprised not to be picked up by always being able to do the exam stuff. And I mean, like the kids at school that were clearly like ADD, that it was called then, I guess, super hyperactive and running around, and it's like they're a disruption, you know, and it's easy to see that, so they're picked up. What's really interesting is on Instagram the reactions of people in the comments about people commenting that have been picked up as an adult and they've masked their whole life and have now just found out, versus people going, oh, that's not ADHD, I had it when I was a kid.
Whoa, Well, what have you found?
That's rowdy. Because people are... I think if you are diagnosed and treated as a kid and medicated or given the tools to do whatever, as you develop and are a teenager, then an adult or whatever, you've actually taught yourself all of these things that matter and that help. If you don't even know this stuff about yourself, then you get to your 30s and you're like, wow, I've been doing everything wrong forever and never known any different. You're all of a sudden starting again.
Yes, I really resonate with that.
The way that, it's just quite funny seeing things in the comments, and it makes me think about it, and I'm like, it's interesting because that person has had their whole life to learn about this.
Yes.
We've gone without knowing about it for so long and then totally relate to what this is.
Yeah,
there's like a divide in the people's reactions.
I can understand that.
And not everyone's story is the same, not everyone's brain's the same. It's like people experience things differently, and people project themselves differently, or whatever it may be. Yeah, totally.
Do you feel like you went through like a weird like shock and grief process, like when you got diagnosed?
Your old self.
Yeah. And like you felt bad for like little Dan.
Yeah, I feel like I started to miss who I was when I didn't know, or I didn't care, you know.
I thought I was the only person who felt like that, honestly.
And I missed myself when I used to be a lot more social and stuff.
Right.
You know? And I've changed a lot, I think, in finding out about that, and become way more introverted.
I would say I've noticed the same, and I was talking to another friend the other day who also has ADHD, and we were kind of discussing, like, with being diagnosed, basically, like, you were kind of just winging it before and like doing all the stuff that you thought that you should do socially, and you, like, I don't know about you, but I just felt anxious all of the time, and I was kind of like
felt like you were going along for the ride.
And I was like, I used my hyperactive energy to like push me forward and to just do the stuff, even though I felt like I was like
you're forcing yourself.
And like I was on the edge of a breakdown because I was always just overwhelmed and stressed and anxious, and I was just always on the edge of a breakdown. So I kind of was like muscling my way with strong will through life and day-to-day life. But when I got diagnosed, it's like finally I felt like I could breathe. Like I could like take the mask off that I'd been putting on and like trying to cope, and like it was really ineffective, and that it was okay to experience the stuff that I was experiencing, and I wasn't weird. I just had different brain wiring. And once I took that mask off and I put it down for a while and exercised a bit of self-compassion, where I was like it's okay to experience this.
I'm different, but
and like I can allow myself the rest and recuperation that I need in order to life. When I went to put that mask back on again, it doesn't fit.
I feel that exactly. And I find being a lot more self-aware now, I find I can deal a lot better with social stuff, but I'll choose, I guess, more carefully what I would do.
Yes, same.
Rather than go along for the, because other people are.
Yeah.
And who I hang out with and stuff like that as well.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
For our listeners, both Dan and I chose to go down the medication route because, it's a controversial issue, and, some people choose to be medicated, some people don't. Obviously, at the point I was at, my ADHD symptoms weren't just impacting me, they were impacting my husband and our housemate who we were living with, because I was really anxious and really volatile with my moods, and it was affecting the environment for everybody, and they were constantly checking on me, like, was I okay? And I'm sure that, like, in the work that I do, it was obvious that I was, like, not coping super well. So I was open to trying medication because hopefully that would have given me more of, like, a stable...
It's a help. It's like,
like
a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, and kind of like just a stable place to start moving on in life through, and like, okay, well, if it can help me regulate some of my emotions and help me move forward, then if I'm on the front foot versus the back foot, like, hopefully it would help. And so, and I mean, what was your decision
I just
choosing
left a job that I really hated for a narcissistic boss.
Right.
And I was just sort of going through that, and then read that beginning of that audiobook.
Yeah.
And figured this out. So then I was sort of at a time I didn't have a job and stuff, and I kind of it helped. Otherwise, I was going to sit at home and do nothing, and I was finding it hard to be motivated.
Oh, so you were
it really was a good time.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, this is great, because now can be a normal, well, not be a normal person, but do the normal things and have a bit more energy and motivation and stuff.
Right.
And now I like more being unmedicated.
Oh, that's really interesting. So,
and I think part of it is because I can work flexible hours and stuff.
Yeah.
If I had to get up at 9 o'clock and go somewhere,
yeah,
I would have to be medicated.
Yeah.
If I could get up and do whatever I want, and then if my brain comes alive in the evening, it's like, do all these things, I'll be on my laptop at like midnight, doing an hour's work or whatever. And I think that works really well, because my brain can do a lot of really quality work in a short time when it wants to.
Right, okay.
I feel like your brain has to work between now and now.
You seize the day.
Yeah.
Seize the moment.
I'm just like, oh, hang on, I'm just going to do an hour's work.
That's amazing. So, for our listeners, like, I take a long-acting medication and I take it every day. I'm starting to experiment with days where I don't take it. And I have been I've tried lots of different medications over the 3 years, and I've found that long-acting I like the best because it's the smoothest. But I know, Dan,
you have Vyvanse?
Yeah, now? So I take a medication called Vyvanse, which was only new to New Zealand last year, and it's not funded, because I was experiencing like a really intense crash, and I found that like the methylphenidate type of medication really... it kind of magnified my anxiety, and it actually made my hyperactivity worse. Like it kind of magnified
it's kind of speed.
No, when that's it's a stimulant, but it's of course, like some people are going to react to different medications differently, but for me, it made my hyperactivity definitely more magnified, but it made my inattentiveness like completely disappear.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. So like my task initiation was so awesome.
Yeah.
And I could there was no problem with motivation. But the emotional regulation was still a bit shot.
Yeah. Right.
And so I chose to try Vyvanse, and so it's completely for me now squashed my hyperactivity. And so I actually have a chill now, which is super nice. I never had that before. I never knew what it was like to sit down. I honestly, guys, I was on the go all the time, and I didn't know what it was like to sit down for a moment and to eat my lunch sitting down. To actually take a break. So I have the ability to do that now, which has meant the quality of my life has improved a lot.
To take a break and go back to something.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's like, take a break, done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, I'm not scared of taking a break anymore. You know, like, I used to joke I was like a shark. If I stopped swimming, I'd die. But now, like, I can actually take a breath, which is really, really nice.
So you're able to manage your time and your work.
Yeah, a little better. But like you were saying before, there's definitely a part of me where I grieve the person who I was before I found out, or the person that I was before I decided to take medication, because although the lows and the anxiety were really bad, the highs and the absolute like wonder and awe, and like when your brain...
The joy, like the...
I feel like when you find something new that you're passionate about, or
the dopamine,
like because you're riding the wave, it's just like I miss the highs, but I don't miss the lows. So all in all, like I know that like obviously doing what I'm doing is good, but there is a part of me where I'm like the impulsiveness of being like, when my friends were like, we're going to do this, and I'm like, yup. Now I'm more likely to actually stop and think like, okay, if I do this, what are the consequences?
I find I prefer to be not medicated, but I still need to quite often, I probably am 50-50 in a week.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to get to that point,
I guess. And it's like I said, it's because I have can do weird hours.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If I had to go and do a job that was going to require me for the day or whatever, then 100% I would be medicated. If I had to do my accounts or taxes or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yuck. And like they say that you can build tolerance to meds as well. So the fact that Dan does do 50-50, it just shows that there's flexibility. And so like, you know, if you have a medical professional who's kind of like, oh, you need to take this for the rest of your life, like Dan is a really awesome shining example that you...
It's what works for you and how you make it work.
Well, like, I was going to say that you're a good example of like how to use your medication flexibly instead of like, you know, and like doing it every single day. Like I'm definitely experiencing more unmedicated days on days where I'm not social or like I don't have like heaps of things to do, like meal prep and cleaning. You know, if I'm having a chill day, then like it's fine. And I find with the Vyvanse, actually the version of me medicated versus unmedicated is like way closer.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like it's only extremely subtle for me and it's like more effective. So
that's good. Yeah, so I have Ritalin, I guess is the normal name for it, or I think in the States you call it Adderall. The methylphenidate is the active, and we'll have like 2 long acting in the morning and then a short acting in the afternoon. Yeah. Like if I need it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I find if I don't for a couple of days and then I have it, I can have less.
Yeah, so it's
you know
like,
what I mean? Like if I don't for a couple of days and then have that normal dose, then I'm like jittery. Like then it's a bit much.
Yeah.
How do you find, because do you find if you don't have it for a day or two and then have it again, is it full on or is it still quite...
Nah, it's pretty smooth for me. Like, I mean, it just kind of, if anything, I'm more calm because I'm taking a moment to like slow down. So it's like, for me, it's kind of okay. And yeah, no, it doesn't impact me that much.
Yeah, right.
So like, I find it works quite differently. But I mean, they talk about a lot with that kind of stuff that like different molecules work for different people. Yeah. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, we should probably wrap up our first episode. I mean, we're getting on to about just over 45 minutes, and I know that your attention spans are going to start to be waning at this point.
Yeah, I'm definitely like, okay, is it?
Yeah, and we don't want to like force you to listen to something anything longer than about you know.
I feel like this is like pretty close to how long people will stick around.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have stuck around, mate, give us a comment or something.
Yes.
What do you want to hear? Were we good? I don't know. Tell us what you think.
I mean, like we're just like trying our best. So please be really nice. Don't give us RSD, which is
it's our first one.
Yeah, we're trying our hardest. Yeah. And we're just here to walk the journey with you, like as to like a big brother and a big sister. Yeah.
We've got heaps of topics that we'll go through over time and maybe have some other speakers and stuff like that.
Yes.
But yeah, if there's anything you particularly want to ask or know about, chuck a comment up. Have a look at the website, ADHD Lounge. Got lots of articles and stuff on there and some awesome apparel with Katie's designs on.
Oh, yes, because I'm very creative. Like most ADHDers, I have many hustles. And this is one of them. So jump on and check it out. And like we've got some good blog posts on there too for like educating. So if you're down your ADHD hyperfocus hole, definitely go to ADHD Lounge and check it out. But until next week, we will bid you ADHD out. And we send you all of the hyperfocus vibes and all of the executive functioning vibes.
Yeah. And good luck with your week.
Yes. Bye.
See you later. Bye.